Hello, welcome to this GibbsCAM Tech Tip. In this video, we'll look at shortcuts or hotkey combinations in GibbsCAM. We will look at what shortcuts are and why you might want to consider using them, how to use them, where to find them, and some thoughts on where to get started. Along the way, I'll show you a few shortcuts that are great ones to get you started, and finally we'll take a look at how to create your own shortcuts. Let's get started. Shortcuts, or hotkeys, are keystrokes or combination keystrokes that execute a command in the software instead of navigating menus or palettes with the mouse. I recommend downloading and printing a list of shortcuts. There is a link in the video description below to this PDF shortcut list that covers the most frequently used shortcuts and is great to get you started. Just to be clear on the mechanics of this, when you see a shortcut like this for toggling balloon help on and off, it shows Control plus B. This means to hold the Control key down and press the letter B on your keyboard. Once you've pressed B, you can release both of those keys. If you see a shortcut like this one, this is the shortcut to go to a left side view. It shows Alt plus Control plus G. For this one, we would hold down the Alt key and the Control key, usually with two fingers of your left hand on the left side of your keyboard, and while holding those keys down, press the letter G, usually with your right hand. But do it in a way that's comfortable for you. Again, once you've pressed the G, you can release all the keys. Try to be consistent in how you approach these shortcuts as far as which fingers to use. Building muscle memory over time will greatly improve your speed and your confidence. Shortcuts can help streamline programming, and using them is generally quicker than navigating menus with a mouse. A great shortcut to get started with is Control plus S, which is save. This command saves the part under the current file name, and I recommend doing this frequently. Aside from the obvious benefits, a really important aspect of this is that when you save your file, the undo buffer is cleared. As you program, the undo buffer consumes more and more system resources. So by saving your part frequently, you can keep those resources available, which will enhance your system performance and stability. Again, the shortcut to save the file is Control S. Let's look at view controls. These are some of the most frequently accessed commands for many users. I have this part that I use when teaching the view controls and the view shortcuts. Each face is labeled for easy identification of the current orientation of the part. Additionally, I've turned down my animation speed in my preferences so that it's easier to see how the part is moving. Many users select their views from either the view control or they use the axis block in the lower left corner to control views. But many don't realize that either right-clicking one of these view orientation buttons or holding down the Alt key while left-clicking will produce the opposite view for that button. So if I click this button, I get a front view, but if I right-click on the front view button, I get the back view. Clicking on the right side view button gives me the right side view, of course, but right-clicking on the right side view button produces the left side view, and so forth. This works using the view palette as well. The shortcut keystrokes for these view commands are among the very first that most users learn. And adding the Alt key to a view shortcut produces the opposite view. So while Control I gives us an isometric view, Alt Control I gives us a reverse isometric view. Control F gives us a front view. Alt Control F gives us a back view. Control G produces a right view, while Alt Control G produces a left view. Additionally, Control U fits the stock size, as it's defined in the document control dialog, to the screen. Think of unzoom to help you remember Control U. I frequently chain unzoom to other view commands. For example, if I'm zoomed in on an area and I want to go to an isometric view with the entire part visible, I would hold down the Control key while I press and release the letters I and then U. This sends the system a Control I command followed by a Control U command. This changes the view to an isometric view and fits it to the screen. What are some other types of shortcuts? There are quite a few actually. For example, F1 through F7 across the top of your keyboard are handy since they access some of the primary system dialogues. Alternately, you can use Control 1 through Control 7, but for me the F keys seem simpler. F1 toggles the document control dialog on and off. F2 does the same with the geometry palette. F3 toggles your tool list on and off. F4 is CAM. F5, your view control. F6, simulation. And F7 toggles the posting dialog. And while we're looking at these and remembering that the F2 button toggles the geometry palette, I need to mention that any button on the geometry palette or geometry subpalette can be selected by pressing the corresponding number. In other words, if I press 1, it selects point since point is the first button on this dialog. Now that point is open, if I press 5, it takes me to center point. Since the third button on the geometry palette is circle, and the first button on the circle palette is center point and radius, if the geometry palette is closed and I need to create a circle defined by center point and radius, I could simply press F2 to open the geometry palette, 3 to select circle, and 1 to select center point and radius. So F2, 3, 1. I will note that the 8th button on the geometry palette is connect. So with the geometry palette open, I could select the geometry that I need to connect and press the 8. Back before I could right click to access connect, I had my middle mouse button programmed to output the number 8 just for this purpose. If you're creating toolpath, Control and the period or the dot is do it, and Control comma is redo the selected ops. But what if there's a command that I use frequently that doesn't have a predefined shortcut? Let's say that in my work I use duplicate and 2D rotate very often, and it would be nice to be able to call that command without using my mouse to navigate the menus. I can right-click in my title bar or my toolbar and select Customize Toolbars and Menus. In the Commands tab, I'll find the command that I need and assign it a shortcut simply by clicking in this field and typing the shortcut. You do need to make certain that you pick a shortcut combination that's not being used by any other command. I'll use Alt Control and the letter O. Alt Control O, since in my mind the O reminds me of rotating a pattern. Normally, I would now save my profile. Now, if I'm working and I need to duplicate and rotate an object, I can simply press Alt Control O, and I get the duplicate and rotate dialog. In the Customize Toolbars and Menus dialog, there is a comprehensive shortcut list that can be opened, viewed, and printed here. This list is dynamic, meaning that any changes you make to command shortcuts will be reflected. You can see that our new shortcut for duplicate and 2D rotate is in this list. This list can be a bit overwhelming though, especially when you're first trying to get comfortable with shortcuts. The PDF linked in the video description is focused on the most used shortcuts, and the format is probably better suited for making notes. In this video, we've looked at a few GibbsCAM shortcuts and discussed how they can simplify your workflow. Along with customizing your interface, saving tools, tool holders, tool lists, and processes, creating fixture libraries, and many other capabilities, utilizing shortcuts is a tool that GibbsCAM provides to help you streamline your workflow even further. There's a link to a PDF of common shortcuts in the video description below. I recommend downloading and printing it and selecting a few you would like to learn first. Once you can use those shortcuts without referring to the list, mark them out and select a few more. You should be using shortcuts as second nature very quickly. If you have any questions about using or creating shortcuts or any other GibbsCAM questions, please reach out to your local reseller.